Hi, folks. This is Dr. Eric Fields. I am a licensed psychologist and an addiction specialist. And presently, I am specializing specifically in gambling addiction. So today's presentation is designed to help you decide whether or not you have a serious gambling problem. And in Letterman like fashion, I created a top 10 list. To be honest with you, this didn't take me very long because I've been doing this for forever, it feels like. And I can rattle off many signs and symptoms or red flags, if you will, of a real gambling problem. One caveat here is that while these 10 signs and symptoms can definitely signal that you might have a serious issue, there are many, many more ways of determining if you have a serious problem or not. And I certainly can help you with that. This is the 10 that came to mind the most quickly for me, but there certainly are more. So, with that being said, let me start going over this list with you. So, the first sign is if your game isn't available, you bet on something you never do. So, let's say you're an online poker player, and that's primarily what you gamble on. And because you're worried you have an issue, you put a block on the sites, or there's a way now to contact the sites and basically tell them to blacklist you so that you can't have access. And then all of a sudden, you start really fiending for that fix and you start betting on things you normally never would. Like, for example, sports betting or online slots. For those of you who bet on sports, I can tell you that you would think during COVID, when no sports were really available, that anybody that had that kind of addiction would be abstinent. And I can tell you that some people were able to take advantage of that time and be abstinent from their sports gambling behavior, but many, many others continued to gamble. They found all sorts of things to gamble on, whether it be online game playing or some other kind of game that you could bet on, to some really far out things, to be honest with you. Um, so if there's a will, there's a way. If you have a serious gambling addiction, you are going to find something to bet on. Another thing I hear a lot from my sports betting folks that have a real problem with this is that time and time again, they'll say there's a slump here. And a slump basically means a period of time when their sports, their go to sports that they usually bet on, are not available. So it could be like the off season for football or basketball, and they'll tell themselves, oh, I have nothing to worry about. In fact, this is going to give me a head start to really, accrue a lot of days and a lot of time abstinent from my sports gambling addiction. And lo and behold, they start betting on sports they never would bet on: baseball, tennis, cornhole, bowling, table tennis, you name it. If you're finding that because your game is not available, whether or not just by circumstance or that you've tried to make it not available by putting certain blocks on different sites, and then you find yourself really fiending for that fix and gambling on things that you normally never would, that can be a signal that you have a serious issue. Number two, you tell yourself that you will stay in control, and then you go ahead and gamble recklessly anyway. So, this is, to me, a very prominent feature of gambling addiction. When people are trying to do it in a controlled manner, and then they're not able to. And a couple other ones that I have on this list are very related to this. They're more specific examples of this, so bear with me and we're going to get to them as well. Number three, you set limits on the amounts or the wagers that you're going to place, and then you proceed to go way over them. So maybe you tell yourself that I'm only going to do $200 or $300 tonight playing online poker, and then you find yourself putting more and more money into the activity as the night goes on and going way over that. Or if you're a sports gambler, you'll tell yourself, hey, you know what? I'm only going to gamble or bet as much as $500 tonight, and then that's it. And then when the night's over, you've bet thousands and thousands of dollars. You've gone way over that limit. Or you tell yourself, I'm only going to do $25 a game, and you find yourself before long betting $100 to $200 on a game. So again, this is like a more specific kind of idea of not being able to really control your gambling behavior. Number four, you overfocus on winning and ignore the likelihood that you'll lose. So what's really interesting about this is social gamblers, or the large majority of people that just gamble for fun and don't have a gambling addiction, they actually focus much more on losing. So when they're trying to think of how much money they're going to bet, they think of how much money are they okay with losing. So they'll say, all right, $100. Should I bet $100? Am I okay with losing $100? No, I don't really think I'd be okay with losing 100. Let me go with 50. That's a complete opposite of what compulsive gamblers do. They'll over focus on the possibility of winning. And a lot of them look at winning as a very real likelihood. And so rather than worrying about how much they might lose, they kind of come from a different angle, which is how much money can I win? And is that going to be exciting enough? So in other words, they'll say, all right, if I bet $100 on this game, right? The most I'll win is $200 to $300. That's not going to do it for me. What if I bet like $1,000? Oh, I can win what, up to $5,000? Yeah, that's what I want to do then. So that's how they make the decision in terms of placing bets. You know, what is the potential in terms of winning and how much? Okay, number five, you often gamble to escape negative feelings and thoughts. This is the hallmark of any addiction. Addictions, their main function in general or purpose is to distract the person from their woes or negative thoughts and feelings or circumstances or tasks that they have to do that they don't want to do. And that can range from like distracting themselves from serious anxiety or depressive feelings to just simple boredom if they find that so intolerable. Gambling addiction, I've been working in the addiction field for a long time. I've researched addiction a lot. I have a lot of experience with addiction. You know, I've been doing this for a long period of time. I've learned a ton about addiction. And by the way, I'm not a researcher, meaning that I've researched in the sense of case studies, right? So I've worked with a lot of people. And so I've learned so much in my own personal work with them about the different kinds of addictions. And I can tell you that gambling addiction is the greatest distractor of all. If we're coming from the premise that all addictions, their first and foremost main function is to distract you from stuff, then gambling addiction is the king. There is no addiction that distracts people as much as compulsive gambling. And so what does that mean? It works really, really well if that's what you're looking to do. So you might not be so aware that that's what you're using it for. So I'm hoping that by reviewing number 5, at the very least, you gain some awareness and start thinking about what it is that you could possibly be trying to escape from with this compulsive gambling behavior. People who gamble socially or don't have a problem with it don't use it for psychological reasons. They do it just for fun, just like social drinkers. And so that's the real difference, is that there's a psychological dependency. You're relying on this for some psychological benefit. Okay, number 6. This is very common. Loved ones often complain that you are not present when you're around them. So I've heard this so often from loved ones themselves or from the actual people suffering from gambling addiction, that the biggest complaint from friends, family, partners is that they feel like they're not present around them. They feel like they're not there. They're not able to have a genuine conversation with the compulsive gambler. They feel like their mind is always on something else. And, you know, it's it feels like it feels like there's not a real audience there for them. Do you know what I'm saying? Because they're so distracted. They're distracted because they're either gambling during that time, or they're perseverating about their losses, or they're trying to think of a game plan to win back their losses, et cetera, et cetera. They're always thinking about something other than the person in front of them. Okay, number 7, whenever you win big, you usually lose it all shortly after. Now, what I mean by shortly after is within a short period of time that could be anywhere from that night to maybe a week later, or maybe even a month. But very often, any big loss that I'm sorry, any big win that a compulsive gambler gets will be lost within a short period of time, and typically within a week. Number 8, which is related to this, and this is why compulsive gamblers so often lose all their winnings. Whenever you win big, you have a hard time stopping gambling. So, most people that don't have a gambling issue, if they win big, sure, they'll keep gambling for a little bit, but then if they start to lose, they'll say, that's it, I'm calling it quits. I'm still ahead by X amount of money. I'm good. Compulsive gambler usually will keep gambling until all the money is gone, or there's not a way for them to gamble anymore, or something stops them, like they have to go to work or something. And those things don't always stop them. But again, more times than not, at some point, they're going to lose it all. But those big wins, rather than cashing out and saying, what a great night I had, it just fuels the compulsive gambling behavior more, so that it lasts longer and longer, thus increasing the likelihood that you are eventually going to lose. Number 9, you often abandon your plan and gamble impulsively. Listen, I can tell you that a lot of the people that I've worked with are really smart. A lot of them are really smart in math. And these really smart people that have these gambling problems, a lot of times will recognize that the behavior is very problematic, it's reckless, irresponsible, et cetera, et cetera. And so they will come up with a game plan. And the game plan is based on math and statistics. And it's a really well thought out plan, and it's the kind of plan that if you're a poker player, it's kind of informing them of what kind of hands to fold on and what kind of hands to stay in the game with. If you're a sports bettor, they have all sorts of elaborate game plans where, if you're up by a certain amount, then you can increase your bets by a certain percentage. And if you're losing, then you decrease your bets by a certain percentage, and that there are these different kinds of limits and uh, all sorts of elaborate plans that if they only followed them, there's a really good chance they'd actually profit, and a really low probability that they would lose money, especially a significant amount, right? A low probability that they would significantly lose money. And what happens is within minutes to an hour, and maybe a little bit more if they're lucky, they will abandon this game plan. And all of a sudden, it becomes not a logical pursuit, right? Not an intellectual pursuit. It becomes an emotional pursuit. And so that their feelings take over, and they're listening to their feelings, and they're not listening to their wise mind, their objective, intelligent mind. So this explains why so many smart people have a gambling addiction. Number 10, and this is the most important. Chances are really high you have a serious gambling problem if you are in the red, significantly so, over the course of your lifetime gambling behavior. Okay? Now, what I mean the red, I mean you've lost more than you've won. Okay? And chances are high that you're actually even in some kind of debt. Right? There might be credit card debt, or you may have missed some bills, and that can go from there all the way up to owing hundreds of thousands of dollars, and your home going to foreclosure, right? But it doesn't have to be that extreme. It simply could be that you've lost a good amount of money, and it doesn't feel good to lose a good amount of money, right? So if you've lost like a couple $100 over the course of like 7 or 8 years, no, that doesn't signify that you have a serious gambling problem by any means. In fact, that's very typical for social gamblers or people that do it once in a while for thrills. That's nothing, right? But chances are high that you've lost thousands and thousands of dollars if you have a real gambling problem. And it goes from there all the way up to almost infinity. But the sky is almost the limit in a sense, right? People who are compulsive gamblers, by definition, will be in the red. They will have significant losses and very often be in serious debt. This is Dr. Eric Fields. I hope you found this presentation helpful in terms of helping you try to decide whether or not you have a serious gambling addiction or gambling problem, and then to make the decision to get help. And help can come in the forms of many different ways. It could be opening up to loved ones and family members that can support you. It could be buying a self-help book. And on that note, I have a self-help book. And if you're interested in that, just reach out to me and I will send you a free copy. There is therapy, super effective, which is the treatment of choice that I've been doing for many, many years. Individual therapy and or group therapy. And there are many outpatient types of services, psychiatric services that can help inform you of medication treatment options that might help you with your urges. There are inpatient rehabilitation centers, and there are support groups, many different ways of getting the help you need. I hope this video helps you make that decision. And if you really are having a problem with gambling, ultimately that it leads you to getting the help that you need. This is Dr. Eric Fields, and I will have more to say about this at another time. I wish all of you the best success in overcoming this serious addiction.